And most sales teams still they rely upon gut, right? The intuition or pressure from management, leadership, or outdated numbers to go against. I remember back in my corporate career when I was running a division in corporate America, we all the divisional managers were called in, and the president of the company said, "This year, whatever you guys put on paper will become the budget." What? Henry, are you sure? Whatever we tell you we're going to do, you're going to accept? Absolutely. Whatever you tell us, that's the way it's going to be. And of course, we all did our thing and we all put our numbers in. And when the numbers were assimilated, everything, the aggregate was created and sent back to the field. We all looked at our numbers and went, that's not what I sent in. So even though we were told that's the way it was going to be, it's not. See, what AI does is it allows us to be objective, recognize patterns, and ultimately get velocity. If you're not a detail oriented person and you're forced to do detail oriented work, it doesn't happen quickly, right? So sales goals themselves, the idea of sales goals, that idea is not broken. The process behind the way they've been done for years and years and years is broken. And what AI can do is actually assist salespeople in sales management and leaders and remove the guesswork from it all. And that's what we really want to talk about. It's going to take away the emotional bias, right? It's not the happy camper giving you the number because they've got the relationship with the people in the field. You're going to get better and clearer decisions. You're going to get a whole bunch of different things that way. So when we look at common problems, to truly understand why AI is going to benefit, we also have to kind of look at what has been happening. In the past, a lot of goal setting has been based on backward looking goals. In other words, what happened in the past. Now, I'm just going to ask a quick question. Has anything changed over the last 5 years? Anything in the marketplace? Has the entire world been turned upside down? So, how can you look at, and Brandon said this very eloquently, right? I used to make this, and this by being booked on stage, and all of a sudden the world changed. Well, it's the exact same thing with the sales goals. If you're trying to pattern your business and do this, looking backwards is a hard thing to do. The second thing is, we tend to use emotional things. I don't know about you, but as a sales professional for a few years, I get pretty passionate about what I do. I get pretty excited about it. And so when I meet people and all of a sudden they say, "Well, I've got 27,000 people on my database and I want to mail to all of them for you." I'm like, um, that's 35,000 sales. Yeah, I know they only said 27,000. That's what I'm saying. The emotion kicks in, right? We start to go crazy. And then you also create in the past, we've created the one size fits all. And we know there's four different buying styles. There's disc. Let's go back to Hippocrates. There's four temperaments. But we've tried to fit everybody into the exact same funnel from that. And ultimately we started, creating blind spots. Teams know the number, but they don't know how to create it. So these are all things that in the past, yes, we've had goals and we've had numbers, but they probably haven't been the most accurate along the way. So the reality is the sales goals themselves probably failed before the first call, but it's not because of the people, the salespeople lacking discipline or lacking drive or going out and making the calls or doing these kinds of things. It's because the goal itself is it lacks clarity. It lacks uh, being real, quite frankly, right? There's no particular roadmap on how to get there. Back in the day, uh, probably before some of you were born, no, not quite that long ago, but a long time ago, when I was a sales plebe, I used to sit down and hand figure what my clients sold a year ago in this same month, what they sold last month, how much inventory they had, and I would pre-write sales orders based on all this information. And I remember multiple times, multiple months going into my boss and saying, "Hey, boss, I hope you don't mind that I'm out of the field for 2 days because what I'm working to do is get accurate numbers and pre-write these orders. And then if I pre-write these orders, the velocity will come after I do that." So think of the story I just told you. I assimilated all this information in a goal so that I can then gain some velocity so I could go collect on those orders. And I would do that. I usually knew by the second or third day of the month where I would finish for the month, 5% plus or minus that number. So it was awesome, except it took me 2 full days of sitting there getting those numbers. You know how long that takes with AI today? Minutes, if that. So again, this is the one thing none of us, by a show of hands, how many of you have a day stretcher? What? No hands? Crickets? You don't have a day stretcher? You mean you don't have one of those tools that gives you 28 hours when everybody else gets 24? That's a day stretcher. Well, AI becomes your day stretcher. You now have access to a day stretcher. You have the ability to now go and do some things that weren't available. So, what AI changes when it comes to goal setting is analyzing large amounts of historical data very quickly. You can give it a file and give it a prompt and it'll go do something. It identifies patterns that people overlook. That's how long it takes people to convert, deal velocity, how fast they convert, activity, how much they convert, all those things. It removes the emotional bias that we tend to have. Again, salespeople are pretty excitable, or at least they should be. If not, they don't love what they're doing. If they're not passionate about what they're doing, that's a problem. So again, updating projections with new data happens very quickly now. So again, it's so funny when Dr. B said, "Will you do something on sales goals with AI?" My brain went straight back to when I was a 21-year-old salesman doing all this handwritten stuff, but how good that was. Because within the first 2 days of the month, I could tell you what my check was going to be. That's pretty important if you're a sales guy looking for money, right? The challenge was that it took that much time. Well, what if you could have that kind of, you know, accuracy even faster? So AI doesn't guess. It doesn't get attached to the outcomes. It's not like salespeople. It's not emotional. It's fact driven, right? It evaluates what reality is and not as what we hope it'll be. By the way, hope is not a strategy. Just in case you were wondering, hope is not a strategy. The numbers are. So it gives you a stronger foundation to truly make decisions off of because you've got better information. Now, again, as a person who loves to be working with people, would you rather be sitting down working with numbers or working with people? I'm going to suggest that if you prefer to be working with numbers, you're probably going to be an accountant. There's nothing wrong with loving numbers, but then there are specific positions for that. So when we start looking at new definitions for SMART goals using AI, they're data backed. In other words, there's a there's an assimilation of numbers. That's a fancy word for me. They're all added up for you. You pull them together. It can become very personalized. It can become adaptive, right? It's reactive because if you don't like something, put in a new and better prompt. Ask for clarity. Ask it to refine it. What I have found using AI is the more that I learn and how to ask better questions, novel concept, better information comes out. And again, in a selling environment, you can now make greater projections. Well, those projections can work for so many different things from that side. And basically it becomes actionable. You can take these goals and now you can create a path, as Brandon was saying. He was just saying that. What did he say? 10 touches a day. By having 10 touches a day, he knew that things started to progress forward. Well, that's what a SMART goal today can do. It's not just measurable, it's also responsive. It evolves as more information becomes available. So we do the best we can at the moment, and then we update the material. So, if we so let's how do we set these things? We first have to define the outcome. Well, what are we going to do? Are we going to go after revenue or after activity? Big difference, right? So the key question is, what is your goal actually going to measure? If it's numbers of calls in a day or numbers of connections in a day, that's activity. If it's $148 came in today, that's revenue. So you've got to look at the correct metric. What are you trying to understand in your goals when you do this? And then you have to look at what activity is tied to that. So I'll give you an example. This week, I did three major events. In fact, I was just sharing with one of my clients. I spent 5 hours on Tuesday at this event. I spent 6 hours on Wednesday at this event and 5 hours on Thursday at this event. That, again, anybody have a day stretcher? Yeah, me either, right? So all of a sudden, the working hours, I mean, what that did for me this week is it went from a probably 8 or 9 hour workday to, in some cases, a 14-hour workday. Now, you can do that every once in a while. You can't do it every day. I'm just going to tell you, you can't do it every day. So don't even try, right? So when we start to define these things, here's an example prompt for you that is based on my past 12 months of sales data. Which activities most strongly predict closed deals and revenue growth? You can actually ask your data on how to become more effective. And that's what this is really all about. Because bosses, if you're in a corporate setting or if you are the boss of people tend to set this money goal, and what they should really be setting is an activity goal. What Brandon shared with us earlier was an activity goal. When I made 10 touches a day, I knew that the right things would happen. Well, the reason he was able to do that is because you can actually take, I did $10,000. I did this many touches. I got this much revenue from that many touches. So it takes this many touches to get that much revenue. Now it starts to translate. Is this making some sense? I know some of this it gets a little heady, and as a sales guy, quite frankly, I like to be more fun. This is like actually the behind the scenes stuff that you have to do to get things working. But when you do this, it's really amazing. So if we use AI, the second step is really to use AI to analyze your past performance. So historical sales revenue, conversion rates on your pipeline. What's a pipeline? I talk about and train on um, uh, pipeline selling. Pipeline starts with a funnel up here, and everything works down and spits out over here called sales. Okay. Think of a funnel coming down to a pipe. Well, if you want stuff to come out the pipe, you have to put stuff in the funnel. It's the way it starts. It's a natural progression, right? So you have to start with that process. So again, when you're doing this, you're driving this historical. If I'll give you an example. The other night I met and got 68 business cards. That means I had conversations with 68 people to the level, because I don't get cards just to get cards. I got cards with people that there was some potential to. That went into my CRM the very next day with a thank you letter that went out to all of them saying, "Thank you for sharing some time with me. I look forward to connecting further." That's the top of the funnel. You get the card, you put it in the funnel, it starts to go. And ultimately, over time, you want that to turn into a relationship, which turns into business. Well, that's what AI can start to tell you. I put in 58 cards. Out of that 58 cards, five of them turned into business. Oh, I got about a 10% conversion rate. That's what starts to happen. Again, I don't want to get too lost in the weeds. For those of you who know me, you've heard me say this before. Today's activity does not determine today's volume. Today's volume is determined by what you did 30, 60, 90 days ago. Today's activity determines what happens 30, 60, 90 days from now. If you're not doing enough business today, it's typically not because of today. It's what you did or didn't do in the past. Don't beat yourself up. People live in two places that are the wrong places most of the time. That is the past and the future. We need to live today. You're here learning this information. And again, from a sales side, this is some headier information, but this will serve you provided you learn it. Understanding today's the demarcation point. If you're not getting enough business today, what can you modify today so that it starts getting better? Again, AI will help give you these numbers, and that's what we want to look at is these wins. Again, it can give you realistic growth by looking at your numbers. It can show you where the pipeline happens. Okay, I got 58 cards. They went into the pipeline. Not a darn thing happened to them. Well, why? Well, did you put them into your CRM but not contact them? Having the name is worthless unless you do something with it. So again, it starts to AI can identify that. In other words, you could go into your system and have your ask the system, when was the last time I contacted this group of people? It can help you identify those bottlenecks and burst through them. The bottom line is when we use AI, it removes both your ego, hey, I'm really good at this, or your fear, I really don't want to do this. And unfortunately, people have sales avoidance and don't realize it. That's why I stress so diligently that selling is actually serving. You're actually helping somebody along the way. And the more we help somebody, the more we serve them. And so if I offer something up to you and you say no, we did not do business today, it does not mean we will not do business forever. It just means today, right? As long as I now simply nurture you along the way. Again, AI helps tell us who's in a nurture sequence. Who do we have to connect? Who haven't we connected with? There are ways of prompting your database to say, give me a list of everybody I haven't talked to in the last 90 days. All of a sudden, you've got this whole list of people that you didn't have to search through your data. You let technology do it. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to share here. AI is your partner in this. It's not going to replace you. It's not going to make the calls for you, although there are systems that do make calls for you now. I'm not a big believer in them. But the because to me it's all about relationships. But what the AI does is takes away all the stuff. It's a very technical word for the things you don't like to do.
Scott,
It yes.
can I ask what is the specific AI like system that you like to use or the CRM? Like what is the program that you use the most or that you like the most?
So actually, I'm just about to address that, but I use GoHighLevel personally. GoHighLevel has got its own AI built into it. It's got I happen to know two of the three founders of Go High Level, so it's kind of cool. Go High Level is based here in Dallas. They're good dudes. They have a desire to provide a tool that does a lot of things for a lot of people very cost effectively. I happen to use that. That being said, I have used HubSpot, I have used Salesforce, I have used Zoho, um, and others. But I use Go High Level because there's the most number of, I have found it to be the most number of tools in one location to do it. What we don't, technology is a wonderful thing. What we don't want to do, in my opinion, is piecemeal this with this, with this, with this. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
Yes, because a one-stop shop is always going to make it much easier. All your steps in one place. You can keep track. It's not all over the place. And also, I think for everybody's pockets, that's great too, because then you're only
Well,
paying for one service instead of five and trying to piece them together to make it do what you want it to do.
exactly. That's what I found it to be. And their stated goal is to give you the best 80% tool they can give you. Meaning they're not trying to get 100% of the market, but they want to do the very best they can for 80% of the market. And in the entrepreneurial world, that's us, in my opinion. So again, um, I've become a fan of it for a number of reasons, and it's got its own built-in AI as well, right? So it can help you along the way. Um, One of the things that we can do is use AI to reverse engineer a goal. And reverse engineering, if you think of Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind, or Jack Canfield, start with a vision, or Tony Robbins, know your outcome, they're all talking about what hasn't happened yet. So I call it being in the after state. Put yourself in the after state of what you want to achieve and reverse engineer the goal backwards. So basically what you could do is you could look at your conversions, you can look at the number of leads you have, you can look at where you maybe didn't convert, you lost people, number of closed deals, but then you could write a prompt like this: reverse engineer a 50,000 monthly sales goal using my current close rates and pipeline metrics. Okay. So, in other words, I can ask my information to put this together for me that says, okay, I'm closing. Again, I'll give you, this is real world examples. Back in the day, I closed 19.6% of every person that sat in a seat in front of me at a seminar. That's how detailed it was. We knew exactly if we could put 100 people in the seats that we'd get 20 orders at $4,000. Now, 20 orders at $4,000, that's $80,000 in 2.5 hours or in 2 hours or less. Now, would you like to know that you could do that consistently? See, if you can reverse engineer something like that, what that then allows you to do is to go backwards and say, well, what does it cost me to put somebody in the seat? Well, it cost us $172 to put them in the seat. Okay. So just let's look at the value of this. We could have figured out this so much faster today than we could have back then. But we knew that 20 people, approximately 20 people would buy at $4,000. That's $80,000 in revenue. We knew it cost us $172 to put somebody in the seat times 100 at $17,200 to put people in the seats that we made 80,000 on. Now, let me ask you a question. And I know this is going to involve math, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How many of you would trade 80,000 for 17,000? Would you do that? How many times would you do it? The answer is as many times as you can. You would do it over and over and over again. That's why reverse engineering this and getting these numbers becomes so important because if you know certain activities, like Brandon was saying earlier, I knew when I made 10 touches, I got I got this many people in the seats, which then translated into this much revenue, which means if I know that to be a consistent pattern, how many times would you do it? As many times as you can, right? So this is where goals now become practical. Salespeople stop chasing just numbers. You get more tactical. And for me, as a heart-centered presenter and somebody who simply wants to serve everybody, I don't ever want to chase numbers, ever. It doesn't align with who I am and my approach to the process. So what I want to do is I want to know as much information as I can. Now, do I want to do that to find that out? I've already told you. No, not a fan of it. Am I willing to do it to find it out? Yes, I was always willing to do it. Now, AI can do it. And that becomes the thing. You know, I've got one client as an example that's tells all his salespeople make 100 calls a day. How many of you would like to make 100 calls a day? What? Am I not getting through to you? Just everybody's shaking their head. No, I don't want to make 100 calls a day either. But why are they saying that? Because they're using the old Wolf of Wall Street boiler room BS, bad strategy, right? That says if I call 100 people, I'll get this many people to answer, which will get me this many phone conversations, will get me this much this, which will do. I say time out. Why don't I qualify those 100 calls a whole lot better? Why don't I meet
Scott,
those
we're at
people?
our 1 minute warning, just so you know.
I told you I got 20 pounds of content in a 5 pound time slot. Sorry about that. Anyway, so you start to understand. Thanks for warning me because I was nowhere close to complete, but that's good. Anyway, the point is that wouldn't you rather talk with better quality than more quantity? My suggestion is you would like that better. And so, again, this whole idea as a sales professional who's done this for quite some time, I started selling professionally as an 18-year-old life insurance agent, not because I wanted to sell life insurance, because I wanted to learn how to talk to people. I wanted to learn face-to-face communication ability. Now, I happen to be a pretty damn good life insurance agent, but it wasn't about that. I was talking to old people. I was 18, they were 40. God, they were old. Anyway, it's a whole nother story. The point is that when you learn sales presentation, knowing your numbers and using AI to get those numbers will help you be far more effective. And so you can do what you truly enjoy doing, and that's serving people. I truly enjoy this. I love this. If I can ever be of service to you, please reach out. I do not hide well. Scott at scottschilling.com. It's where it is, right? I've got a I've got 38 ebooks. I've written 26 books. I've sold millions and millions of dollars. I don't share that to impress anybody, but to impress upon you. I've been there. Probably can serve you in some way that will help you be able to serve more people. For me, become the first stone. Become the first stone that starts the ripple of goodness because you never know where that ripple of goodness can end up. The reality is if I'm the first stone, then you can be the second stone. Keep the ripples going. A river reaches places its source never knows. I want to be the source to serve you so that you can touch more lives. AI is a silent partner sitting over here going, if you want to serve more people, Learn enough of this. I'm not saying you have to be Dr. B and be an expert, but learn enough of it to be able to take and move this forward. Has this been helpful?
Thank you so much, Scott. We appreciate